Gather around the table once again for another session of Dungeons and Drakfus, and today we're going to be taking on the last progression dungeon in Burning Crusade. Now, there was a dungeon that came later, but we're going to take it on when it actually kind of comes into the story. But the final one that we actually need to do is back in the Caverns of Time, and actually you can tell Andormu has a new quest for us. Let's go ahead and take it. It's good to see you again. The Black Morass. The infinite dragonflight have abandoned all pretense of subtlety. They plot to destroy the Guardian Medivh and prevent the dark portal from ever opening. While outwardly, this may appear as a boon to the forces of the Alliance, it is an actuality catastrophic and will result in your world ending. You must venture through the timeway leading to the Black Morass. Go west and then south, past my future self, until you reach the tunnel that houses the swamp specimens. Cross over and speak with Sa'at. So yeah, we're going to be going into the Black Morass, aka the opening of the Dark Portal. Now, people remember from Escape from Durnhold Keep, the Infinite Dragonflight tried to prevent Thrall from ever escaping there, because if he stayed there, he wouldn't have formed a new horde, and that actually creates problems for the timeline. The same thing here. This is where the Guardian Medivh and the Warlock Gul'dan work together to create the Dark Portal, the bond between Draenor, or the link between Draenor and Azeroth, and that's how the orcs came here into being, or not came into being, but came to Azeroth in the first place. And if they're not there, that creates a bit of a problem. So let's go ahead and step in here. And actually, since I've been bringing up the Kara attunement, mainly because I have some bad news in the Karazhan raid video that will be done, I can't do the attunement quests anymore. Unfortunately, they got ruled out, but I'll explain a little bit more in detail on the Karazhan video. This was actually the last step. You had to go and prevent the ending of the non-opening of the Dark Portal, and then you would get the key to Karazhan. So let's go ahead and step on in. For those who don't know the story, the First War began with the Guardian Medivh, who was possessed by the demon Sargeras, leader of the Burning Legion, who then reached out to Gul'dan to bring the orcs here as kind of a means to create chaos and allow for Sargeras to get his just rewards on Azeroth. There's more to it than that, but we'll find a video to be able to explain that. And here is Sa'at. Do not go any further, mortal. You are ill-prepared to face the forces of the infinite dragonflight. Come, let me help you. Alright, so hail, adventurer. Heed my warnings before venturing into the Black Morass. Now, people might be a little confused. The Dark Portal, isn't that in the Blasted Lands? The Blasted Lands used to be part of the Swamp of Sorrows called the Black Morass. So at this point in time, it's swampland, but now it's now currently in Azeroth's time, it's a desolate wasteland. So let's go ahead and turn this one in. Indeed, if the orcs never make it to Azeroth, the Alliance will never form. Eventually, civil war will break out, further weakening the human kingdoms. Ultimately, the Burning Legion will invade Azeroth, destroying it in the absence of any defenders. The opening of the Dark Portal. Beyond this timeway, the Guardian Medivh feverishly works to open the Dark Portal. Scattered across the morass, rifts will materialize. Infinite will pour out of the rifts and attempt to destroy Medivh's shields, and ultimately, Medivh. Kill their rift lords and leaders. Do this until Medivh succeeds. So even though he's doing what we know to be like a bad idea, because it does start the first war, and in turn creates a chain of events to start the second and third war, it needs to happen. The timeline cannot be changed here. I remember doing this as progression. You actually had to clear out a good portion of these animals before you started things up. And that's kind of the reason I'm also not reading the lore here, because that's pretty much the lore. We are preventing the Infinite Dragonflight from stopping the opening of the Dark Portal. So here it is. There is the Dark Portal, the first portal that was ever made. Yeah, doesn't look the same, does it? Yeah, that thing's been rebuilt a couple of times. Let's kill off all the animals. So let's go ahead and start things up. We will be doing the lore of the dungeon bosses, but at the same time, we're also just going to get this going because it's a waved encounter. You guys will see in just a second how that works. So here is Medivh. Let's go and start it.
The time has come. Gul'dan, order your warlocks to double their efforts. Moments from now, the gateway will open, and your horde will be released upon this ripe, unsuspecting world.
Okay, so he needs to do what he needs to do, and you can see already there are time portals that are opening up where the Infinite Dragonflight is trying to get a foothold to stop Medivh. Now, for those who don't know Medivh is the Guardian. He is the protector of Azeroth from the demons. But, unfortunately, he is also possessed by a demon, so he's not really doing his job very well now, is he? Although he does not, in his defense, he does not know he is being possessed. Until much, much later in his own life. So all you have to do is just basically kill off the one dragon that's actually tethered to the portal, and that will close it. So this guy, the Rift Keeper. And you have to do it for 6 portals. After 6, then you'll get a boss. And that boss will try and take down Medivh as best he can. And so, as you can kind of tell, if Medivh's shield remains, or goes to 0%, you lose, you have to start this all over again. To which I would say, good luck! Alright, so that's 5. Here is our next portal. So as you can see, there's some degree of speed that needs to be utilized to get to the portals on time and be able to take care of the threats. And after this, now as Portal 6 opens, here's where our first boss comes into play. And we won't be reading the lore until they're dead, because while the portal's open, we'll start getting whelplings that'll start attacking Medivh. And that's just more frustration. Oh.
Just think how if the
Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the first boss, which is Chronoloord Deja. The Infinite Dragonflight tempted many Draconid with promises of power, but most found only servitude and despair. One of the few exceptions is Chronoloord Deja, who gained influence within the flight through his raw power and cunning. Alright, so we've taken care of him. He's our first threat to Medivh. Well, there's threats all over the place, but this is the first major one from the Infinite Dragonflight. So here's the next portal. We're starting this up again, people. So all we gotta do is wait for the next rift to open, or the Rift Keeper to show up. There he is. Boom. So now our next portal is a ways off. See if we can get there quick. Here we are, we're here. And still no Rift Keeper. I kind of expected one to spawn. Okay, so that's the next portal. Yay! Right next door. This is what you do for the instance. And actually, I don't mind it. I actually like these instances, because later on, Wrath of the Lich King reutilized this idea in the Violet Hold, and even Legion brought back the Violet Hold. Which, again, I don't mind, because this is still as engaging an instance as anything where you actually move through it. I already know I'm going to get comments of like, no, it's not that good, it's boring. Well, it's boring because you're overpowered for it. I'll agree with you, it is boring when you're overpowered for it. But when you were doing this as progression, it was pretty freaking awesome. Oh, and actually, I did need to clarify something, because somebody actually did reach out, and I made a little bit of a mistake in my Arctraz video, where that was the first key that you had to get. Thank you for pointing this out, because I completely forgot. You actually did have to get keys back in the day for Sethicals and the Shadow Labyrinth. You had to have the... Well, you didn't necessarily have to have the keys, but if you wanted to open the doors yourself, you needed them. So yeah, you needed to have those. Oh, and here's our next boss, Temperus. Alright, so here is the lore for Temperus. Although relatively young, Temperus was instrumental in identifying many of the Infinite Dragonflight's prime targets. As a reward, he was given the responsibility of destroying anyone who might attempt to interfere with the Dragonflight's plans. So basically, he's like a fledgling Infinite Dragon, and he gained a little bit of favor, but now he's dead, so it doesn't really even matter. Oh, and Portal 13, where is it? There it is. This is also a fairly fast instance, because if you could do these well enough, you can just cruise through them, and they're fine. That's one of the things I like, is when, you know, you do time walking and you cruise through the instance, because, well, you know what you're doing, and therefore a 30 to 40 minute instance becomes a 20, and I just don't see the downside to that. 20 minutes? Yay! I could go start up another one. Okay, so here's our next portal. We're at 14 of 18. We need 4 more. Now, the 15th portal is over here. Well, I'm getting lots of chocobos today for my random mounts. Because you can't technically fly in here. Okay. Portal number 16. Probably over the other side. There we are. So we just need to get our portal key, or our rift keeper to show up. There he is. And of course, each of these rift keepers you had to approach differently. There was like a caster-oriented one, a melee-oriented one, kind of an in-between one as well. Those things happen. Oh, cool. I have a turbo track. I didn't even realize. Yay! Okay, the final portal is opening. And this one ain't effing around. Well, when he steps through, he's not effing around. We've got a full-on infinite dragon. Oh no! Fist of Fury! And there you go. And yes, I was taking on the infinite, or the heroic version.
I am grateful for your aid.
Let's go ahead and see the scene, and then we'll go into the lore.
Gul'dan's horde will sweep across this world like a locust swarm. And all my designs, all my carefully laid plans will at last fall into place.
And now you get to see the event for yourself. The first orcs stepping out into Azeroth. Strictly from the Shadow Council, which was Gul'dan's little faction within the Horde. Alright, so there you go, and let's go into the lore of Aeonus. Oh, wait, hold on. Orcs of the Horde, this portal is the gateway to your new destiny. Azeroth lies before you, ripe for the taking.
Gul'dan speaks the truth! We should return at once and tell our brothers of the news! Retreat back through the portal!
And so now they go back through the portal because they know it's safe, and then we get our first Horde invasion of Azeroth. So let's go into the lore of Aeonus, who we just barely killed. Powerful and wild, Aeonus was tasked by the Master of the Infinite Dragonflight to personally oversee the disruption of key moments in the true time way. So, now that we have that done, let's do a quick magic cut while I make my way back to Sa'at. Well, there is Sa'at, so let's go ahead and turn in the quest that we have. Oh, no, we're not going past you. You've done well, Drakfu. The time ways are safe once more. All right. Yay, so we get to pick a ring. Doesn't really matter. There you go. And before we end things, I'm going to step back out into the Caverns of Time because I think we're going to get an additional quest and then call it there. Because, yep, this actually wraps up the 5-mans in Burning Crusade. There is one other, but it was patch content, so we'll take it on when we take on the patch. That way the story is still lined up. And the next thing we need to get is from Sori Dormi, which is one of the consorts of Nosdormu. The Battle of Mount Hyjal is one of the most well-guarded events of this timeline. Should an intruder alter its outcome, the impact would extend to all subsequent moments in history. As the Aspect's prime mate, I'm far more in tune with the flow of time than the other bronze dragons. I recently sensed a minute ripple in time emanating from the events surrounding the Battle of Mount Hyjal. Someone or something is attempting to change this timeline, and they must be stopped. So we're talking to Sori Dormi because we're going to get some additional quests. Yee, we're talking a lot about raids. Well, let's get in there. Vials of Eternity. 7 vials were drawn from the Well of Eternity by Illidan. He poured 3 into the lake on top of Mount Hyjal, and a second Well of Eternity was created. For years, the rest were believed lost. With the opening of the Dark Portal, we come to know that he gave one of each to his lieutenants, Kael'thas and Vaj. Retrieve what remains of them. We will need them as foci to open a gateway to any events tied to Mount Hyjal, recent or ancient. The outcome of the Battle of Mount Hyjal must be preserved. This is kind of like an old school attunement for the Battle of Mount Hyjal. You needed to at least go through tier 5 to start it up. And that's going to go ahead and that's going to go ahead and wrap things up. That is the last at launch 5-man that Burning Crusade had to offer. Like I said, we will have another one when patch content happens. But stay tuned tomorrow as we begin Burning Crusade raid content with one of my personal favorites as we venture into the Tower of Karazhan. We'll see you guys then.